Okay, so let's set up a file to do this bouncing ball, whether you're doing it with hand-drawn animation with a tablet, or whether you're doing it with shape animation, or whether you're going to try doing some motion tweening. Let us give it a go. So first we need to make note of the layer function. Very much like Photoshop, Animate also works in layers. These layers work in conjunction with the timeline. So as you work in your file, you'll have different layers, and all of them will work kind of differently with the timeline. So let's give ourselves a bit of time for this bouncing ball shot to begin with. I'm going to give myself 2 seconds, and then I'm just going to click with my cursor over here. And then I'm going to either press F5, or I'm going to go to the Insert Frame key over here. And that will lengthen my animation to 2 seconds. Next, let's put in our sort of background element, our floor, that our bouncing ball is going to bounce against. So I'm just going to go to the classic brush tool, don't need a tablet, and I just need to hold down Shift and click with my left mouse button, and I can draw myself a floor. If your line looks a little bit different, make sure you take a look at your size over here, and change that around when you've got the brush tool selected, and that will allow you to change the size of your brush before you draw it. So we've got our floor. Just like in Photoshop, we can now lock this layer because we don't want to accidentally edit it when we're grabbing things. The next thing we're going to want to add to create our bouncing ball is our arcs. So, obviously we want to kind of show what our path is going to be for this ball. Okay, so first let's just take a look at what is going on with a bouncing ball by looking at some real-life reference footage someone's taken of what a ball does in the air when it's being bounced. So we can see here, based on our reference footage, this nice motion path line here, where you can see how the ball is kind of working in terms of its timing and spacing, and how it's working in terms of its arcs. So obviously, in real life we don't get a lot of squash and stretch, but we'll also be trying to apply that. But one of the major things we want to try and get right is the spacing. So as the ball is going quite slow, the spacing is really close together, and as the ball is going fast, those bits of spacing are really far apart to kind of show the motion. And hopefully you'll kind of grow to understand it as we do the exercise. You can also see these arcs. Now, the arcs are the main reason that I wanted to kind of show this footage, because what we want to do in Animate, as I switch back, is we want to lay out our arcs before we get started. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer. We've locked our floor layer. So if you're using a tablet, this is nice and easy. Just make sure that you hit onto the classic brush tool, and then you can draw yourself, using your tablet, some nice arcs. So think about how the ball's traveling. Take a look back at this reference footage. You can make them quite big arcs, you can make them quite small, but I'd say just make sure you at least get 3 in here. So let's just give this a go. So I'll put 1. So there we go. I've done a really quick draw of my motion path idea. It's not perfect, it's very rough and ready, but at least it kind of shows me what I'm doing with this. And if I wanted to edit some things, so say this isn't quite as high as I want it to be, I could just go into my selection tools and just drag around the areas that I want to change, then go to Free, Transform, and if I move this pivoter point around, so say I put it here at the bottom, I can use it to sort of push against the floor and draw out that arc a little bit more. So of course, just like Photoshop, everything's editable with those selection and transform tools, which is really useful. And I want you all to keep in mind that if you are drawing not on the first frame and you've got auto keyframing on, then it's going to cause some issues. So you might be over here and draw something, and then find that later in the animation you can't see the arcs because of this. So make sure you are drawing on the first frame of your animation if you've got auto keying on. Okay, so if you are not using a tablet, so if I just wipe that out real quick, or maybe you're just not so confident in using your tablet, no worries. Let's have a look at the pen tool. So I went through this a little bit in the other tutorial, so we had a look at obviously just placing lines around the place, but we can also create curves. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to place a point, then we're going to drop it somewhere else, and as we drop it, we are going to hold down the mouse button, okay? So I'm going to drop it, maybe about here, and I'm going to hold it, and then I'm going to drag, and that is going to create a curve. So drag it quite far out, and there we go, we've got ourselves a nice curve forming there. So we just grab this pen tool, we click, we drop, and we drag, and we drop. Now, if you make an arc like this and it's not really what you want, the way you change the size and the shape of an arc like this is you need to go up to here to your selection tool, click it, hold it down, go to your subselection tool, and then click on the line. You will be able to move this to your heart's content and be able to play with what we call these handles on these Bezier curve points. What we are doing here is creating what you call, in any kind of design or art, a Bezier curve. So if you work in Illustrator or if you work in After Effects, you will be using Bezier curves. They're really useful. So yeah, we've got 1, we've got 2. I might move it just a bit further up. Yep, there we go. And then I'm going to put a 3 there at the end. So drop that point, drag it out, drop it, and then customize it however I feel by just selecting it and moving it around. So make sure not to grab the whole thing. Just push that down a bit. And then if I want to symbolize maybe the roll off to this, I can add myself in 1 extra line. So there we go. So that's a quick simulation of what our motion is going to be like, whether you are working in tablet or if you're going to be working in shape animation. So once you are set up like this, it's time to actually start animating. So we've got several processes for this, and I'll kind of do different types. So make sure just to skip to the video for the type of process that you want to work in, okay?